Hello, my name is William Keller. I'm a retired teacher that likes to write. A little introduction to my background. Born and raised in Hoboken. Taught here for about 25, 30 years. In middle school mostly. And I was a scoutmaster along with Jim Alvin, who's here tonight. Troop 11, keeping alive something that was important to us. Remember the Elks. I think I said I had served a couple of years in the Army. And that pretty much, I think, makes me a square. The kind of guy that writers like, hipster writers like Nelson Baldwin and Norman Mailer, it's totally unhip. But I like being unhip. This city, for me, was a great place to grow up. A lot of zany characters to enliven things. It was a fairly prosperous city. When I grew up, everybody worked. There was all kinds of industry, business here. And there were a million kids. It was right after World War II. I was born on May 8, 1945, which I think makes me baby boomer number one. That's VE Day, Victory and Birthday. Anyway, I'm here today to talk about my book, Hoboken Gallimaufry. Big fancy schmancy word, means nothing more than a mishmash collection. That's various kinds of writing in here. 5 novellas, 4 essays, 2 poems, 2 short stories, and 1 fable. The stories I've outlined on this little list in front of me are stories that I mostly worked into various books, couple of books that I've written, but I want to tell them today because they typify what's in the book. And maybe having heard what I have to say, be interested in reading it. I'm sure you're not going to make a fortune on this book. I'll probably lose one, but that's okay. Writing it's just something I love to do. The first story I would like to tell you, narrate, involves my grandmother. She was from Bavaria. She was a tough character. She took good care of us when my father and mother split up for a while, and we lived with her and my Aunt Margaret. And one day, my Aunt Margaret took my older brother and Aunt Margaret down to the Fabian Theater to see a movie. They went upstairs to the loge, which actually was closed. And Mr. Forster will tell you that they have here the little sign that was the outline, the silhouette of an usher, a little red hat on, and we had a sign, Loge closed. But my grandmother figured, we'll go in there because it'll be clean, and nobody will bother us. You know, we can sit down and enjoy the film. Halfway through the movie, some guy comes in with a raincoat on and sits suspiciously close to my Aunt Margaret. A few more minutes go by, this guy gets up, opens the raincoat, and in the immortal words of Lane Dennis in Seinfeld, he took it out. When he did so, my mother, who was already, concerned about this, my grandmother wore her hair in a bun, and she took a large pattern from her hair and skewered the member that this guy was wagging about. So loud was the raucous that he set up after he was so impaled that they put the lights on in the theater, and he bolted and ran. And he sent a couple of ushers in to try to see what was going on. He ran down, out the door and down the fire escape that went down the side of the Fabian. And he was quickly apprehended outside the theater because it wasn't hard to identify, but with this impairment and all. And they took him off to, it was right across the street from the City Hall. Took him across to the police department, which was already also there, and I guess processed him. Later on, my father, who was a doctor in Hoboken, and therefore had written plenty of script for these policemen. You know, if they were out on a toot or something, they couldn't get up the next day. They needed a signal. I'm sure he wrote several of those. In any case, the police assured him that this guy was apprehended, would not be any trouble anymore. And my father told my grandmother that. And she said, "Louis, that's good." But after they used this IP for evidence, I brought it back. It was a good one. My wife especially likes that stuff. There were strange characters, like I said, in Hoboken. One of the strangest in my book was a guy named Freddie Yo-Yo. His real name was Freddie Yo-Yo. And he had a gift for mangling the English language. And he was down in the grill room in the Elks Club and one evening, and sitting at the bar, he announced that he had to go to the bathroom. In the back room, where the bowling alley used to be, they were having, the yuppies were having a Trivial Pursuit contest. He goes to the bathroom, on his way back, he sits up on the back and he says, "You know, these yuppies, these freaking yuppies, they're unbelievable." He said, "I go past a table and there's some guy asking some other guy about the mating habits of seals. It's part of some game they call Sexual Pursuit." Freddie really was gifted in destroying the English language, something I always loved. Back then, Hoboken was still showed the residue of having been a German town at one time. In fact, H.L. Mencken mentions that as the second most German town in the United States in his autobiography. I remember planning to volunteer for the United States Army. But before I did so, I wanted to treat myself to a last farewell trip to Ireland and Germany. And also Expo 67 was going on at the time. So I went up to a travel agency called Stenix. They were decidedly German. They knew my father. And I explained to the woman that was a German woman that was taking care of me, and I told her what I wanted to do. She said, "Kelly, you are in luck, because right now we have a promotion where you could fly up to Montreal, you can go to Ireland, and you can go to Germany, make one big arc, no double back, and double back, and all of that for one price." I said, "Sign me up, sounds great." But I must tell you also, there are two airlines that provide this opportunity. One, I'm happy to say, is Lufthansa. Or would you like to take a chance with Air France? So, needless to say, Lufthansa. There was a German delicatessen pork store, really, called Kurt Lemmer's. And I particularly liked the place because you get these Senf curry, these mustard pickles, Willenborg imported them. Nobody else did. Plus, the only place I knew of where you could get smoked eels. Now, I got a Jones for smoke deals early on because I remember reading Gunter Grass's Tin Drum, and people raved over this, very important literary work. So I dug in. I'm about 1/4 of the way through and said, "You gotta be kidding me! This is going in the trash can." Until I got to page 102, and there's an old man out on a jetty, and there's a heavy rope from a ship out into the bay, and Gross describes him as pulling this thing in, and it's attached to the other end is a horse's head, out of which, once he pulls it up onto the jetty, every orifice of the horse's head, the ears, the nose, the mouth, the eye sockets, eels are slithering out, and he's pitching them into a burlap bag. And I mean, that's what the guy was going to live on, either sell or eat himself. I said, man, that's it. I'm hooked. Anyway, I'm married to my wife, who's from Oklahoma. We're newlyweds. We're living in a small apartment in Hoboken. And I had gotten the day before a section of this smoked eel. And I'm sitting there and I'm peeling the kind of ugly blackish skin off this eel, and I'm squirting lemon onto it, and she comes out of the bedroom and says, "Mother of God, what is that you're eating?" I said, "Oh, this stuff is delicious. This is a smoked eel." She goes, "Oh, I think I married a Klingon." So, I got to revert to, I told you before that I was a teacher for a long time, and met all kinds of really dedicated teachers, but some are more memorable than others. There was a fellow named Huey Markham who taught, and he was a really good teacher, but he was an eccentric. He was, as the expression goes, gaiety and laughter, but unapologetically so, and a very natty dresser. There was a time when he taught in the same building as I did, and he spilled coffee on his pants front, and he assigned a monitor, a trustworthy girl, to be in charge of the class while he was away, so that he can clean himself up. And he went off to the teacher's room. There was a vice principal by the name of Julia Boehm, who, excuse me, newly appointed and wanted to show that she was, not somebody to be messed around with. She was going to, lay the law down. Anyway, she goes up to the classroom for some minor matter, and Malcolm's not there. And she gets all in a huff, asks the young girl, where's Mr. Monk? He's in the teacher's room. She goes off to the teacher's room and enters the teacher's room, and the door to the bathroom is open. And Huey's got a big white handkerchief and some soap, and he's cleaning up the mess on his pants front. And Julia Bain goes, "Mr. Markham, what in God's name are you doing?" And Huey, being Huey, without batting an eyelash, turns around and says, "It gets overheated this time of day. I have to cool it down." She turned on her heel and never bothered him again. And were I she, I wouldn't have bothered him either.
I'm looking over the stories. Oh, got to tell this one before we're done. There was a coach, Vince Ascoli, football coach, very successful, Hoboken High. And some of my friends played football for him. And it so happened that for some reason he had some kind of a relationship or friendship with the coach out in Alva, Oklahoma. Alva, Oklahoma is out on the panhandle of Oklahoma, in the middle of nothing. The guys that went out there found that they were pretty much isolated. There wasn't much to do. So my friend Andy Dixon, he's one of the guys that was on this trip, said they've got to go on some kind of a road trip. And in Lawton, Oklahoma, they had what was called the Toughest Man in Oklahoma event. And what it was, they'd have some arena or a tent, and a big boxing ring in the middle, and you had to pay to get in to just watch this business. And you could sign up, and then there were boxing matches between people who were going to make claim to being, the toughest guy in Oklahoma. Well, part of the amusement or the entertainment was that they had an orangutan, and they would give you $50 if you could stay in the ring with the orangutan for a full minute. Now, the orangutan was muzzled, and he was trained to corner whoever in the ring and then toss him out. Well, there's this guy from Bayonne, New Jersey, gets in the ring, and the orangutan approaches him, and he gets off a left hook, followed by an overhand right directly on the orangutan's forehead. And the orangutan goes bananas. They had to drop, planning on something this might happen, they dropped this net on him. And the orangutan is writhing about on the ground. Meanwhile, the guy from Bayonne, displaying his unquenchable hubris and courage, says, "Let him up. I want to finish him." Speaking of fierce characters, I drank at a place on the corner where I grew up, and it was owned by Andy Dixon and Jerry Ryan. They call it the OK Lounge. They call it OK because of Oklahoma, because some of the guys, went out to Oklahoma, like I said, to Alva. There was a guy who drank there by the name of Sal Stabile, and he was an old-time Teamster, and he had so much seniority that he would go to the bar in the morning, and if there was even a hint of rain, he would call in sick, and then pretty much spend the rest of the day bending the elbow. And he was fond of Four Roses whiskey. And he had a really fierce way. He loved to tell stories, a really fierce way of telling the story. He'd get in your face and he'd grimace. And he told us one story about, he took his wife over to 42nd Street, I don't know, go to the movies or something. And out front of one of the movie houses, he meets this mounted policeman who's there in uniform with the horse. And he says, "Hey, Stal, how you doing? Could you do me a favor? I bought a watch upstairs in this place here to get fixed. It'd take me, 2-3 minutes? I got to go up there. I got to pay and get the watch. Could you hold the horse for me while I go up there?" Sal, being Sal, says, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So up he goes, and now the horse, I guess, didn't like the look of Sal, and, starting to act up, and Sal gets the bridle and pulls the horse closer to him, and the horse bit him. Well, Sal being Sal, he's got this horse's face right in front of him. He sinks his teeth into the nostrils of the horse. And needless to say, now the horse is going gaga. And down the stairs comes a policeman. What the hell are you doing? You're mangling my horse. And Sal says, don't give me that. He started it. So that's my Sal story. And
When Jerry, when he died.
oh yeah, that's right. Thank you. Sal passes away a year or so later, and I come into the bar, and Jerry Ryan, one of the owners, is sitting at the bar. He's got the Jersey Journal open, and there's an obit for Sal. And I mean, Jerry looks like, he saw a ghost or something. And I said, Jerry, I know you like Sal, we all did, but I had no idea you'd be so aggrieved over his passing. He said, aggrieved my ass. I got 4 cases of 4 Roses downstairs and nobody drinks that crap. Well, those are the best stories I can remember, and I, as I said, I wove them best I could into this book and the previous book, and I thank you kindly for your attention. Unless there's questions.
Take some questions.
Hope there's no fruit going to be thrown, or vegetables, or tomatoes, or anything like that.
Oh, tell the story about coming home from Schutzer Park.
Okay.
You got 8 minutes left.
Oh, boy. You think that's better, or the one about the Mrs. Kozak coming over? I tried to learn German. I've spent a fortune trying to learn German. I just have very little ability to acquire a second language. And there was these twins, the Kozak twins, Richie and Gus, both Hoboken people, and their mother tried to teach me a little German. And I remember saying to her at one point, Lisa, we got a German restaurant in Hoboken, Helmer's. And there's other German restaurants around, but you can never find Hasenpfeffer, which is a rabbit stew, or a roast rabbit on the menu. You just can't. She says, I can cook you a roast rabbit. I said, fair enough. Come over next Saturday. I go up to a place called Marsigliano's up in North Bergen, and I got 2 fresh-killed rabbits. Took them. She came over, had coffee and cake with my wife. She's got all chopped this up, chopped that up, open up the oven, put it in there. And there they are, cooking away. At one point, she goes, 1 minute. I smell. I think we are close to completion. Let me go check the rabbits. She goes over to the oven and pulls the tray with the rabbits out, and she goes, oh Gott im Himmel, look at them, they're beautiful, just like my little Richie and Gusti when they were born. I grant you that's kind of a bizarre Nordic German humor, but it's the kind of stuff that delights me. The story that my wife was talking about a minute ago is that I was with these same 2 characters at Schutzer Park for a German fest, a beer fest. We were also there with a guy named Richie Breyer and Louis Dofer. And there's this very pretty German girl in costume and everything, and Richie was hitting on her all night, but to no avail. The mother or the grandmother was there and whisked her off. Richie he was still in the Navy. He had to go back and get on a bus and go over to New York City, get back in time to check in. So that left 4 of us out in front of Schutzer Park, and we pooled our resources and found that we had about 19 cents. We didn't even have car fare for one person to get on the bus. So we're going to have to hoof it. We're going to have to walk home. We start off and we go past a Grand Union. And we took one of the shopping carts at the Grand Union. And I said, look, we'll take turns. One guy gets in, you know, the other three, somebody pushes it, and then you take your turn. And it kind of passed the time. We made our way down through Pleasant Avenue into Weehawken, past the zoo and the firehouse down there. The zoo was a go-go joint. It was closed at the time, but we had no money anyway, so. Anyway, right after that, there's a bridge that goes over the train tracks, and it leads directly into Hoboken. I think it's Willow Avenue that you're on. Anyway, we're pushing this thing up, and we say, you know, I mean, it is a gorgeous night. You look off to the left, the moonlight's on the river. It's just something wonderful about the night. And we get to the top of this bridge, and there's one guy in it and two guys hanging off the side like outriggers on a Hawaiian canoe or something, and one guy in the back. And off we go, howling laughter, like from the song, the Whiff and Poof song, Gentlemen Songsters Off on a Spree. And zoom, this thing is picking up speed, and we zip down onto Willow Avenue, and from underneath the bridge comes a police car, and he's got the red light on, and he said, pull that thing over. Like we had brakes or steering wheels. So we get to the bottom, and we climb out of the cart. Cop goes up, what the hell are you doing? And Gus goes, well, what, was we speeding? He said, get that thing up on the sidewalk or I'll put my foot up your ass. That's what. And that's what we did. And we went off, and Gus borrowed a tenner from Lou at Lou's, what was the name of the bar? Circle Bar? I can't think of it. Anyway, bar on Washington Street. And we drank there for a while. Yeah. Yeah, 8th and Washington. Yeah, Lou's, that's right. Anyway, I was the last one, so I don't know why, I took the shopping cart with me. I put it out in front of the house, and the next morning I tell my wife about this, you know, wacky night that we had, the fun that we had. She goes, you know, you just make this crap up. I said, go look out the window. The shopping cart's there. And it was. Well, my mother raised 3 boys. None of them were fools. Foolhardy, perhaps, but none of them were fools. So I've exhausted my outrageous tales, and I hope you enjoyed some of it. Thank you.
Could you hold up the book and explain the title? And is it for sale?
Certainly. It's for sale. Hoboken Gallimaufry. Gallimaufry, as I said before, means a collection, kind of I like big, fancy words like that, not to show off my intelligence, but it's when somebody from Hoboken uses big words, I find that amusing in itself. You know, it's like Muggsy McGuinness from the Bowery Boys saying something like transubstantiation. You know, you just don't expect them to know what it is, how to say it, or what it means.
And separate from the book, I know you as the author of this famous list of questions. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Surely.
By keeping it clean?
Yes. there was a zany group of teachers, like I said, with Huey Markham at the branch school where I taught most of my time. And at this time, there was like a influx of people from New York. In fact, there's a play here in Hoboken about the fires that took place when the yuppies were moving in and they were trying to get people out and evicted. And there were claims that some of these fires were set. Anyway, there was a lot of, some of it justified, some of it was just nonsense, resentment about these yuppies that were moving in. And they just, they just weren't used to Hoboken ways. I remember a teacher, Stanley Palmisano, who would go to Marie's Bakery, and there were certain customers that came into Marie's, and they've been coming into there to get their bread like almost every day for the last million years. And, there'd be one or two yuppies ahead of them, but these ladies would go right over and expect to get their loaves and pay their money. And I remember Stanley saying, these people, they just don't get it. Well, I kind of sympathize with it, people who are having their line jumped, but Stanley didn't see it that way. Anyway, so there was this resentment against the new crowd that moves in. And I'm always looking for an opportunity for a joke, some merriment. And when I say we, myself and several other teachers made up this list of things that you would have to know if you grew up when we did in Hoboken. And it was like 40 questions with a little introduction. And we circulated amongst ourselves, and some people let it leak out to others. And weeks later, I find out this thing has gone, well, they didn't have the internet then, but what the equivalent of Hoboken viral, So people were, I didn't put my name on it either, by the way. And it had circulated around so much that I remember being in the not in the teacher's room, in the office, the principal's office, and Vera Rashadi, the secretary, Bill, you got a telephone call here. I said, I got a telephone call. It was some guy from the Jersey Journal. And he says, we have information that you are the author of this. We would like to interview you. I said, absolutely not. I know nothing of what you speak. Because I didn't want to get my ears pinned back. There were some tough cookies that we were making light of. People like Sonny Tyrone, who was famous for throwing people through the town lunch window. I didn't want to mess with him. He's the same guy that right around the time when The African Queen was a movie with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. And there's a scene in which Bogart has to get into the water and actually tug the boat forward, or attempt to anyway. And he gets out of the thing and he says, oh, God Almighty, what is that? They're biting me. And this guy, Sonny Tyrone, is at Palisades Park, and his girlfriend's on him, on a towel, sunning herself. And Sonny, being the humorous dude that he was, comes out of the pool and says, Rosie, get the leeches off me. as though Palisade Park had leeches. Every once in a while, you find a Clark bar floating there. So, well, that was pretty clean. Where was I? Oh, the list. Well, I think that's it. I mean, it grew into 3 or 4 more questions about, who is this, who is that, who was Crazy Francis, what was Yankee Bob famous for?
And people would ask you, what's the answer to number 39?
Well, back then I did know. But it was interestingly, I kicked myself for not doing it. But somebody said, you should make a list of answers somewhere, you know? But we never did. We never did. And now, porous brain that I have, I look at that list and I'm lucky I can answer half myself. So right now I'd be called a yuppie. Right here, River City starts with a P and then ends with L, and that spells trouble.
We're there, and we do have copies of your list, so if anyone wants to follow up, maybe that should be the bingo. Okay, thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.